So we're going to go ahead and run our music store app. This one is going to have a little bit more going on than the first one we created. The first one we created had the application name, home, about, and contact, but it did not have register and login. Okay, those are added because we did the authentication piece. So if we hit register, okay, it's routing us to the account controller, and then from the account controller, it is displaying the register view. Login will do something similar. This is routing through the account controller, and we're looking at the login view. Now, how do I know this? Because up at the top, after the port number, it's basically telling me what controller and then what action method, and those correlate to the views. So we have an account controller, we have a login action method that routes us to the account view and the login.cs HTML file. Just like if I hit home, I'm in the home controller. It went through the index action method and routed me to the home view index page. If I hit about, you can see here we're in the home controller. It went through the about action method, routed us to the home view, about.cs HTML page. And what we're going to do is we are going to change a controller. So it's not going to let us do that while this is running. So you can either click on the X or you can use the stop button. And we are going to close out of some of these pages. And what I actually want to open is my home controller. And so for the about method, we are going to change the view bag message. So let's go down here. So right now the view bag message is your application description page. And let me point out, I'm going to run this. You don't have to do this, but I want to show you where that displays because we're going to change it. Okay, so that view bag message is showing right here. And we are going to change it. And we are going to change it to Lisa's extremely interesting about page. Okay, and so I want you guys to put in your name instead of mine. And because this is still going to our view, we are not going to modify anything with that method header. Okay, we are still going to an action result, which is our view. All we've done is change the message property. And we're going to also do that a little similar change down here in contact. For contact, instead of routing to the view, which is what it's doing now, let me comment this out. We are just going to display the information on the page. So we're going to change this because we're not going to the view anymore. We're going to display a string. And that means we're going to return what we want to display. So I'm going to say contact Lisa at. So I'm going to have you guys key in your name, your email address. And when we select contact from the menu, that is what it's going to display. So let's do a save all. And let's run this. So we've changed about and we've changed contact. About is going to route us to the view. Contact is not. Okay, so our index did not change. Let's go to about. Okay, you can see it did route us to the view, and now it's displaying our new message. And let's go to contact. Okay, so contact did not route to the view, and it's just displaying our message. And you can see kind of the problem with not routing to the view, because the view is displaying your whole menu system. Now you can go back into any of those views routing through the controller. So if I wanted to go back to my index, okay, I would just change the action method here to index. So it'll go through the home controller, index action method, and I'm back here on my index page. And again, if I wanted to go to register or login, I'm not dealing with my home controller, I'm dealing with the account controller. Whoops. And then you have to indicate which action method you want it to run through. If you pick an action method that does not exist or that requires data from a database, you are going to get an error. And then it's just a matter of picking the correct action method so that it can route to a view and display the page. Now, you may be wondering how this menu gets here, because you'll notice that if you pick anything that's routed through a view, you get this nice bootstrap menu. And if you look at the views themselves and you try to find that code, you might be thinking, how in the heck does that menu get there? Because I don't see any kind of code for it. Okay, so if you look here, we've got a division with the Jumbotron, which is the header. Okay, so if we look at our index page, this gray area is the Jumbotron. Okay, and that's part of Bootstrap. And then you'll notice that we have another class. Basically, any class specification you see in here is pulling in formatting from Bootstrap. Okay, and we'll talk about Bootstrap a little bit later. By default, this is using, I believe, Bootstrap 3. We will be updating to Bootstrap 4. For this first little interface, the first couple, we're just going to kind of leave the defaults as they are. So looking through all this code, there's nothing indicating a menu is displaying. Okay, we've got lots of classes, but you can see these are for buttons. Okay, and there's nothing here indicating any kind of a navigation or menu bar. So how views work is what you see in the view itself is what goes in the body of the HTML. This is pulled into something that is in the shared folder. So the layout.cshtml pulls in everything from the view, and it is the layout that has the navigation bar. So you'll see that there is a view bag title here on layout, and then it is pulling in some content. Okay, so styles.render indicates it's going to be pulling in styling from content folder. and CSS. So the tilde means start at the top of the structure, and then it goes into the content folder, and then it's pulling in the CSS. Scripts is doing something similar. Okay, it's starting at the top, then it's going to the bundles folder, and it's pulling in Modernizer. So bundles used to be a separate folder, but now it's under App Start. So in MVC somewhere it's wired to pull in Modernizer from App Start, okay, even though it says bundles. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes here that is not apparent when you first come in. That kind of makes MVC harder to learn. Going through here, you can see we do have a nav bar. And then we have something called an action link, several of them. And this is where those links are coming from. Okay, so these are all action links, which means if you wanted to add something to the nav bar, this is the place you would do it, and you would have to add it as an action link. And we are going to be doing this in upcoming weeks, but just so you kind of understand how this works, is you've got the controller, the action method, okay, and the third thing is a parameter. So we got controller, action method, parameter. So in upcoming weeks, we are going to be adding our own. And then kind of coming down here further, where it says at render body, that is where it's pulling in your view. So at this point, which is below your navigation bar, it's pulling in all of the view data. And then you'll notice there's a footer here that's specified with the date and time. And then at the very bottom is where it's actually bringing in jQuery, Bootstrap, and any other script. So this is where it's actually pulling in the scripts files, which lets you use the classes from Bootstrap, and it's also going to let you use jQuery. And I believe we've kind of looked through most of the folders. We will be modifying different files within the folders in upcoming weeks. At this point, all I want is for you guys to have a general idea of how everything fits together and how those conventions work. The fact that you go in to the application through a controller. Okay, and by default, it's going to use the home controller and display the index. So you go in through a controller, the controller routes you to a view. What you're actually looking at here is a view. Anytime you fill in a form, okay, and you store data, it is using a model. And the model is simply a class. Okay, and we did take a look at those. And in upcoming weeks, we will be generating a database and tables from the models. And we use Entity Framework to do that. Okay, and it does it, it's such an easy process using the models to generate the database. It's actually called Code First, and it works really slick. And for those of you that took the relational database class and used SQL to generate all of that, I think you will appreciate how slick this works. Okay, so models store or specify our data. The controller retrieves data from the models, sends data to the models. The controller also determines what views to display. And the only thing the user interacts with are the views. Okay, so at this point, that is basically what you need to understand. So what you need to show me is you need to run this MBC Music Store app, and you also need to run our first app. Show me that you made the changes, and then you will get all of the points.